Hi, everyone. This is Erica here, Media Communications Director at Criterion HCM, and I'm excited to be joined by Jeff Hoffman, global entrepreneur from Priceline.com, Booking.com, Ubid.com, and chairman of the Global Entrepreneurship Network. So, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. Could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. Thanks, Erica. I am a longtime serial entrepreneur and CEO. I've been building companies and running them my whole life. Been involved in 8 startups. Some failed. Some were sold, some went public, and some became multi-billion-dollar companies. So I've been doing that in the tech space, consumer space, and then entertainment and media, in film, television, and music, as well as a little bit of work in sports. So that's pretty much me. Been building companies and growing my entire life, and been doing that pretty globally. And today I work with companies, startups, scale-ups, growth companies in the Global Entrepreneurship Network is on the ground in 190 different countries. So I work in a pretty global stage, working with businesses all over the planet now.
So we're very excited to hear from you on the topic of employment engagement. Let's go ahead and jump right into the topic. I would love to ask you, how do you motivate and keep employees engaged?
First, let me start by saying why I was excited that you guys asked me to do this today. My fundamental belief is that, the scarcity, when people ask what it takes to really grow your company, a lot of times people talk about money, funding. And the truth is the scarcest resource in the world is not financial capital, it's human capital. Talent is the difference between the world's greatest companies and everybody else, not how funded they were or anything else. So that's why what you guys are doing here is so, so important. And motivating people, turns out that I learned all this stuff the hard way as a CEO who's employed. I've hired thousands of people over the years and actually all over the world. And originally I thought that it was my job to motivate people. And later what I discovered is people have their own motivation. There is something that already motivates them. You need to find that, bring that to the surface, and help them with it. A really fast example was I went around and asked employees one day, what were some of the most important goals in their lives? And one employee told me, someday I want to buy my mother a house that she can retire in for the rest of their life. He didn't need me to motivate him. He needed me to help buy his mother a house. And I don't mean literally buy her a house. I mean, make sure that he never forgot that the reason he should work hard is because he had a dream, and he knew that I knew it too. So as long as we talked about what mattered to him, he stayed motivated. So in fact, his motivation was coming from within. My job was just to draw that out of people.
Could you share with us some best practices that you've observed and love to test?
Absolutely. So a big piece of that is one we just talked about, right? Which was asking people, why do you come? So I literally went around, Erica, and I got this idea one day, and I went and asked people. I said, why do you come in here every day? And they said, well, this is my job. I said, no, why do you really come in here every day? Why do you have a job? And what I discovered was the process of asking everybody that works for you why they come to work every day. What is it that gets you up in the morning? Again, I give you an example. Chris said, because I got to get my mom out of that. She was living in an Airstream trailer in a horrible place. And he said, I got to get my mom out of that trailer park and into a house. So by asking, which had never occurred to me before, why do you come to work every day? I was able to help them get engaged by being part of saying, come on, man, we got to finish this. Your mom's counting on us. And part of engagement was understanding what drove them and why they came into work every single day. But another piece of engagement for me was asking them specifically, asking them, what are your personal growth and development goals? And how does working here help get you there? Tell me how you're trying to grow. Tell me things you want to learn. Tell me the direction you want to be. By the way, some people are afraid of when employees leave, but you know what was happening to my employees? They were getting jobs to run other companies. They were getting offers that were phenomenal, and I was losing people because we engaged them in the way they wanted to be engaged. We taught them skills, right? We helped them grow, we helped them develop, so much so that they outgrew my company. And they would call and say, yeah, I just got a job as a COO at another company. And I was like, you got to take that, man. You've grown to a point where people want you now in a way that you weren't ready for before you came here. So it is a compliment when employees are rising up to positions they never dreamed of before, even if it's another company someday. Those companies wind up doing business with you if you part in the right way. But I think that's the ultimate proof that you're doing your job well. I engage my people by asking them, how can I help you grow and develop? What are your personal growth goals? And let's see how your job here, your career here, can help you achieve your personal development goals. If you don't ask, you'll never know what they were trying to achieve. You'll only know what you asked them to do.
So aside from outgrowing their current roles and getting job offers as CEOs and things like this, what other metrics do you use to measure engagement? And there are so many out there like NPS, employee happiness, et cetera. Could you share some of those with us?
Yeah, we actually used a little bit of all of those. We typically used, and I will be honest, as better tools came out, we never stuck with one tool forever. We upgraded. When a new tool came out and everybody was talking about how great it is for employee metrics, we upgraded more than one time. But I will say that we were also a hybrid. We used, because I remember initially when, the whole concept of KPIs came out and there were terms, and then later, one day I heard the term OKRs and I didn't even know what that term was. I said, what is this one? There's always some new employee metric system. And if they work, we adopt them. But we always had, Erica, a part of our own custom internal set of metrics, where instead of trying to force fit a square peg in a round hole sometimes, trying to adopt a tool that was out there because the tool already did it this way. But if that didn't really fit our culture or our needs, I always went to my employees and I asked them, the company is thinking top down of implementing this new metrics and measurement system, but I want to ask you bottom up, how would you do it? How would you like us to measure you? What metrics do you want us to consider? And how should we collect that data? So I never just implemented a system and said, everybody has to use this, because a lot of companies do that. I said, I'm considering implementing this system, but I want you guys to tell me, if you were designing something, what do you want us to include in the metric system that might not be included in those systems? So in the end, I think we always wound up with a hybrid solution. We used efficient tools that were created in the marketplace, but we supplemented them with ideas that my employees came up with, because I went and asked them for their ideas as well.
So this brings us to our next topic, which is learning. So how do you push employees to self-develop and grow?
Okay, so I'm so glad you worded your question that way, because this is what I think. If I have to push you to desire to develop and grow, you're not the right employee. My answer to you, as harsh as this is I don't hire those people, right? So part of my interview process is tell me your growth and development goals and how you'd like to get there. And if somebody shrugs and they're like, I'm good, I'm not going to even hire that person. So you shouldn't, this is a test for people listening to this. The internal test is, if you have to go around and push people and to grow, as opposed to what I used to get is people coming to me and saying, what's my personal education budget? What's my personal growth and development budget? Can I get a little more? And people were asking, will you pay if I go develop these no skills? If I take this class, can I split it with the company? If you're not hearing employees coming to you and saying, I have growth and development goals within my job. I had tech people that wanted more certifications. And they said, hey, I know I'm not required to do this now, but if I got this certification, I'd be a more valuable employee to you and our customers. Will you pay for it? Will you split it with me? Will you give me a little time off to take the class? That's what you want to hear. So part of my interviewing process always was, tell me how you want to grow and how you anticipate doing that. And it's important to us that we build a team of people that already know what their growth goals are, and then that we are allowing for them to grow by not saying, hey, look, you got to get you got to make these numbers, right? If all you is heads down focused on make these numbers today, your employees are never going to grow and your company's not. So we did have a budget. for growth always, and we created time for growth. But employees tended to already have goals in mind and things they wanted to learn that they were asking us for.
Excellent. So with that in mind, with the learning budgets in mind, how do you use technology to promote employee learning?
Yeah, so that is such an efficiency driver, because it used to be back when I was an employee, we had to leave and go to training courses. I had to physically go somewhere to a course, and my boss would be, "How long are you going to be gone? How long is it going? What's it going to cost to fly there? The hotel room? You're out of the office. You know, your family's complaining if you have that, right? Because you're gone for a week." We used to literally fly to training classes because that was the only option. So it was expensive and it was difficult and time consuming. Today, with technology, there's two parts to that. Not only did we learn, especially during the pandemic, that a lot of people can teach us remotely. So remote and online learning, just like we're doing right now, Erica, is much stronger, much better developed. There's more curriculum and more choices out there. So we use technology internally. We use technology to have the experts in the company record classes for new employees for onboarding, right? Here's how this works within this company. So we use video inside the company by having our best people record videos that new employees or growing employees can listen to. For example, if you're in sales, you want to clone your best salesperson. You want to have your best salesperson record a video of how they do this so that other salespeople who are trying to grow can learn from the best person in your company, even though they don't see them during the day. So we use video internally. We take online classes so that employees can do it at home at night or maybe even during the day, but they don't have to travel to do it anymore. And the last piece I wanted to throw out there is a ton of free online education as well. So the first thing when an employee comes to me and said, "I want to take a class in this," I always would ask them, "Did you Google it to see if someone offers it free before we sign up for a paid class?" And many times they said, "Wow, I found a class that's actually free. I'll take that one." And then sometimes you have to pay for it. But all those technology tools greatly enhance your ability to get education versus the model that I used to live in.
So how can learning be used as a tool to grow employees within an organization?
So employees want upward growth opportunities. And they are times where people want to learn something new. They not only want to grow vertically, upward growth in the company, but they frequently want to expand their skills horizontally. And it may be so that they can take on new assignments in your company, but honestly, it may be because they have career goals that are bigger than the job you have for them, and they might go somewhere else. But in all cases, the ability to learn is a big incentive to employees. When we're interviewing, we tell them that we provide you time, access to resources, and in many cases, budget, because we want you to keep learning, developing, and growing. And I've had employees that came to me and said, you heard this old expression, Erica, that, the reward for good work is more good work. If you're really good at the job you're doing, you're stuck in it, because why would I move you? You're so good at that job. And in fact, what the employee is thinking is, that's not fair to me. I want a chance to grow as a human being and a professional. And you're not letting me try anything else because I'm so good at this one. I'm actually being punished for my good work. And so that's how it's used to create more incentive and more engagement and more opportunity, because internally they're developing new skills. And as a company, I've had people that posted internally for new jobs that when they got there, they would have never been qualified for. And they said, "Wow, I see stages of my career and I'm not bored in one job forever at this company. I have opportunities to move into different departments and work on different things and continue to grow myself personally." The employee education is a huge piece of employee satisfaction and engagement.
Well, that brings us to our next topic, one that is exceptionally relevant right now, which is remote work. So in your personal opinion, do you think that remote working is effective and/or productive for a modern workforce?
Yeah, so we were using it before there was a pandemic and before it was popular. And the reason I was using it is because my businesses were global. And so there was no way I could have people in the same office. So I will say this, that nothing virtual will ever replace certain types of meetings face to face. For example, customers, I've been doing this recently. Customers, there's times where I need to go sit face to face with a customer for a variety of reasons. We're sketching it out on the whiteboard, we're socializing a little bit. There's a piece to that, that there are certain meetings, closing a sale as an example, that I always want to do in person. But what we've discovered with the power of technology like Zoom, and like I said before this, my company was doing this on Skype before there was Zoom, et cetera.
Right.
Virtual workforces are very effective. The reason why is that talent pool you used to be literally as a hiring manager at any level, you were limited to people within a physical driving and transportation range of your office. If they can't get to the office, they can't work for you, because we used to think, right, we hired people that came to our office every day. And so the talent pool that you could fish in was way smaller, because they had to live near where you worked, where your office was. When we switched to virtual work, we discovered that we could now hire people anywhere, across the city, across the state, across the country, and in London, because they're not coming to the office anyway, and we can now communicate with them. And what made it different, today's tools, than before, we always had the phone and email, but that didn't make for a virtual workforce. The studies, I'm sure you've seen them, are that 80% of all communication in a conversation is nonverbal. And ever since I saw that study, and that's a well-documented, people listening to us can look that up. Therefore, when we have tools like you and I are using right now, my ability to work virtually is much more powerful when I added the video component to it, because I no longer lose the nonverbal communication. So a virtual workforce is powerful. It allows people to adapt work to their life in a way that they're more productive during the hours they're working, if they actually need to leave for an hour and go pick up their children, right? And then come back online. I might get 7 hours out of you instead of 8, but I got 7 fully focused hours out of you, not 8 or 9 hours at the office where you're totally stressed out because you can't see your kids, you don't know how they're doing. So it creates a more holistic employee environment. You got happier, more fulfilled employees that are getting more overall productivity done, and you're able to hire people across a broader talent pool because they don't have to live near you anymore.
So how could an HR leader use technology to encourage increased employees' productivity?
Yeah, so first of all, they can connect to a lot more employees than they used to. Meetings were also physical in the office. And now I've had times where we've sent out a Zoom meeting invite to people across the country, to people in other departments of the company, other divisions. And we've invited them into a meeting that we didn't really think about when it was only physical. If you have expertise in an office in New York for your company, then the Chicago office, you don't typically invite those people to your meeting because they have to fly to New York. This is pre-technology. With technology now, my productivity is way higher when I hit a button and say, hey, let's ask someone in New York, because they do that over there. I can chat with people all over the company now, and I can solve problems faster, and I can build working teams composed of people all across my company now, or even bringing in outside experts because it's the click of a button. So it's definitely improved productivity, plus the fact that I can do things when I'm stuck on a problem that's slowing down my productivity. I could watch a TED video of some expert explaining how to solve that problem. And I say, now I know exactly what I need to do. These tools definitely improve our productivity by getting access to experts and expertise at the click of a button now.
In what ways have you enabled employee engagement to continue to thrive during periods of remote work?
So part of it is that we have had talks, instead of just meetings using the technology, we've had meetings about the technology. A lot of people, all they've ever done is they click on a, start Zoom meeting and they go to the meeting, but they've never thought consciously about, how do I as an employee use this technology to engage better? So part of it is to hold a little internal class in your company called How to Use Today's Technology. Most companies have not done that. And I gave a prime example. If you work in the Chicago office and you have a New York office, mentally, it never occurs to you to get much access to the experts in New York because they're not in your meetings, right? You could call them on the phone, but that's not great, especially if you're problem solving. But if I called my staff together and said, you can use this technology. By the way, right now, Erica, if you and I wanted, we could screen share, we could pull up basically a whiteboard and we could problem solve together. You can't do that on a phone call or on an email. So making sure that employees know the full power of the technology, that they know about screen sharing, that they know about products now that have like a Google shared doc, or there's products now that have virtual whiteboards. There's all these new tools out there that you should be holding a little internal class or making a video about it and showing employees these are all the ways you could use these tools to improve your own productivity. Don't assume that your employees have figured out how to get the most out of technology. Show them how to do it. We have used this remote technology to add a dimension of work that matters to engagement. And it's cultural. Not every company will do this, but I'm a huge believer in the importance of culture in your company. And so I'll give you an example. So we try to talk about how do we use this technology remotely to engage people culturally. So let me tell you what we did one day. One day, we asked everybody that had a pet to bring it on camera. And we picked cutest pet. We picked ugliest pet, which was hilarious. And then we picked funniest pet story. And the engagement, this was totally optional. But oh my gosh, the way that, and we allotted time to it and you didn't have to show up. But like every employee showed up and everybody had pets of all different kinds, not just dogs and cats. There were birds and turtles and snakes. And we had a blast. And people were learning about each other. And they were feeling more connected to the company and to its employees. And it turns out the next time there'd be a Zoom meeting, somebody would say, did your cat have those kittens yet? And everybody was kind of engaged in the answer. And somebody had to put her dog to sleep. And people in the company sent her flowers because they knew that she was going to be having a really rough week, the week she had to put her dog down. And it just created a feeling around our company that was connected in a way that we were losing during remote work. People were not feeling each other anymore. So I said, guys, we got to connect as humans again. And so my first idea was that. Another idea was, I think we did one that was a cooking thing. Show us a dish you made while you were home, right? And tell us how you made it. And people were talking cooking tips with each other. And then we had a time that some people, besides pets, that people were showing their hobby. One girl was an unbelievable painter, and no one knew that because somebody saw, they looked behind her and they said, what is that behind you? That painting's gorgeous. And she said, actually, I painted that myself. And they're like, you paint? And then I said, you know what? Next Friday, everybody, if you have a hobby, show it. And so we found ways to use this technology to increase engagement by letting people learn about each other, totally optional. If you're uncomfortable, you don't have to do it. But it turned out pretty much everybody did it, and it changed the way they connected to each other.
Wow, those are super original ideas. So thank you so much for sharing.
They were fun.
They sound very, very fun.
They were.
And I bet you many of our listeners are going to start to implement that in their own contexts.
I hope so.
My last question for you, it's sort of open-ended. It's just, you have such great insights. We would love for you to give us some advice. So what advice could you give to other company leaders for 2021?
There's a couple pieces of that.
Okay.
First of all, that employees are feeling disengaged in a remote environment.
Yes.
They're home all the time. They're stressed. A lot of people, they're stressed because, they're stressed because they haven't been able to go out much. They're stressed because they've lost the random conversation with the person who sits next to them, right? That might be helping them with a problem or might just look over at them and see that they're stressed out and walk over to them. They're missing a lot. They're feeling stressed in many cases. They're feeling disconnected. You as a leader need to not just shrug and say, well, what could I do? Everybody's remote now. You need to say, what can I do to make people feel more connected? How can I use technology to its fullest? And you need to not assume, like I said earlier, that your employees know how to get the maximum use out of today's technology in terms of improving their productivity and communicating with each other and customers. You need to have someone in your company teach a little seminar called Getting Maximum Use Out of This Technology. So don't assume everybody knows how this stuff works, and find ways to get them engaged using the technology by recognizing that people are feeling disengaged and they need to a little bit more engagement there. And lastly, recognize that a remote workforce gives you the chance to access an employee pool all over the world, including other leaders. You as a leader could reach out to other leaders and you could say, hey, how are you guys engaging your employees during this remote workforce? What are you guys doing? These are people that you might not have been able to connect with before, but you can find them online and do an online meeting and call a little group together and say, let's talk about how to engage employees in a remote workforce. You can share with your peers. So you need to be doing all those things proactively.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. You had some excellent points and all of your answers were so original and so insightful, and you've left us all with the wheels in our heads turning. So thank you so much. And again, I just wanted to thank you, Jeff, for joining us on today's Future of Work session by Criterion HCM. We really, really appreciate you taking your time to join us, and our listeners surely learned a great deal about today's conversation. So thank you so much.
For
I
having
wish
me,
you a
Eric. I
lovely rest of the
appreciate
day.
it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.